Good morning, friends. Hello, hello. How are you this morning? Grab a little mug up. Got a little Army chaplaincy mug from the Wayback Machine. Make me feel like a young man when I get to drink out of that from back in the day. So I hope your day is great and good, and that you are finding wonders in it. We just had the opportunity to spend a little time across the street at the Resiliency Preparatory Academy, offering a welcome to school breakfast with to their students there and their staff. It was a real joy. It was a lot of fun. Hey, Vicky was there. She was a great servant. Made her ways around to chat with a lot of the kids. Really terrific. So thank you everybody for who made that happen and were a part of that journey. It's good stuff. Um, Good morning, Karen. How are you this morning? Hope you're doing grand. Hey, Breakfast Club Journey. Jane, good morning to you. I still owe you a song for your birthday. I hope you're doing well. I mentioned the Breakfast Club. We just rewatched that in our house the other day as a chance to, because Ryan had never seen it, so we got to watch it, and it's funny how much of it. So there's two things that I found with the Breakfast Club. One, some of it holds up and some of it doesn't, but it's very, it is so locked in its time that it's just great. So, but anyway, thank you for reminding me of that. So, all right, friends, let's get going this morning. It is, hey, Donna, good morning to you. All right, friends, let me try that again. All right, friends, let's get going this morning. It is the 5th day of September on this Thursday at 11:11, and I'm glad you're here and a part of this journey. I'm glad that there's goodness in your days. So I want to talk this morning about this Jesus in the Gospel of Luke. He spends a bunch of time in the Gospel of Luke saying, he also does in Matthew, but particularly in Luke, I think, talks a lot about what it means to be Jesus' disciple. And he has this where, like in John, he's really lays out what it is to be in relationship to the Son and the Father, and there's all this Father and Son language. In Matthew, there's the sense where he's really talking, where he lays out what it is to be a part of the messianic line, to be a part of this new and coming movement that is going to be that is the conquering of Jesus and the Christ over the evils of the world and over death and over death itself. And in Luke, it is this kind of expansive thing of how do we who it was often Luke was very much written to the Gentiles, to the Greeks, to those who are not Jewish. It's like, how do we participate in the life of Christ? How do we follow the way? And so Luke has a lot of these allusions to how to be a disciple. And so it starts. This is one of many places in the 14th chapter. It says, large crowds were traveling with Jesus, and turning to them, he said, if anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. And whoever does not carry their cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. Suppose you want to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate how much it costs and see if you have enough money or to complete it? Or if you lay the foundation for a building and are not able to finish it, everyone is going to make fun of you and say, this person began to build and they weren't able to finish their tower. Or suppose a king was about to go to war against another king. Won't he sit first down and consider whether he is able with 10,000 men to oppose the one coming at him with 20,000? If he is not able, he will send a delegation, and while they are still far off, he will ask for peace terms. And in the same way, those who do not give up everything you have cannot be my disciples. On first blush, this is such a huge ask, particularly in the ancient world, right? Like the ancient world, your family is all you have. Like if you don't have family, if you don't have a tribe of which you are connected, you barely can do economic commerce. You are really limited. That everything is built around this sense of one's tribe in the ancient world. And if you go to the Middle East today, you'll find very similar things. That even people's names become ways in which to express their tribe. That someone will say, somebody is, it'll be, Ahmed, son of Ahmed, and so literally even within people's names there is this sense of their lineage and they're connected to their tribe. And so when Jesus says, unless you hate mother and father, children, brothers, sisters, even your own life. So what is this? What is he talking about when he's talking about this? And then he goes on to well, you need to be a planner. Like you need to be this planning kind of guy. You need to, what about if you build a tower, or if you're going to war, if you build or you tear down, no matter whether you're building or whether you're tearing down, that there has to be some wisdom about it, some ways to do it. All of this is this little section is encapsulated in what we talk about when we talk about the virtue of prudence, and which is kind of where I want to spend our time today. If you've never spent time studying the virtues, it is well worth it, particularly in the age in which we find ourselves. They are rich and they are beautiful. There are these ways of, so the virtues came out, the 7 virtues came out of this notion of the teachings of Jesus, that the scholars and the early church fathers started to determine that there were these themes that kept running through Jesus's work, and that there are these gifts of the Spirit that get named in the Pauline works, and so in all of it, you start to discover that there are these places where many of these teachings start to fulfill a common way of being, and that common way of being came to be named the virtues. And so now the virtues are older than Christendom. That's the other thing about the virtues, which is really fascinating, is that they predate Christendom. And so there's this way in which the world was, I always love this phrase, no way of understanding. The world was pregnant with the incarnation of Christ, and that when Christ is born into the world, there are all of these things that come to life, that take new meaning, that take new life, that have life born into them, as opposed to being these stodgy academic things that these kind of these dry and earthly bound rules, which you kind of find in Marcus Aurelius and some of this other stuff. Now, people will fight about that, but we don't need to talk about that today. We don't need to fight about that today. But with the birth of Christ, all these things start to take on life, and they start to take on real flesh and bone and meaning of what it means to live these things out in an incarnated way, in a way that we live them out in our bodies and in the ways in which we move through the world on a daily basis. And we come to this one called prudence. So, and I know we've been talking about it for a while, and we've barely gotten to the idea of what it means. But prudence is this, and this is what what all these different ways that Jesus is coming at this is really trying to tell us about prudence. It's this. It says the prudence, and C.S. Lewis is kind of one of the better ones to define this, I think. He says, first, for the ancients, prudence was the mother of all virtues. That it wasn't, that courage is kind of considered the most important of all virtues. There are other things that are, but prudence is the thing that births all virtues. All the other six virtues come from prudence, because if you don't have prudence, if you don't understand where to put your energies, when you should put your energies there, if you don't put your energies towards the things that need to be built up when they need to be built up, and the things that need to be torn down when they need to be torn down, if you don't build when you're supposed to build and it's appropriate to build, or you don't go to war and tear down when it's appropriate to tear down, if you get those turned around, if you tear down when you should be building up, and if you build up when you should be tearing down, there's the other six virtues just won't do you a whole lot of good. Like, it doesn't matter how courageous or how temperate or you can be, or how chaste you can be. None of them can get you anywhere. And so it's from this foundational understanding of prudence that we get all the other virtues, which is kind of one of the reasons I think it's such a great, such a powerful thing to meditate on in these days. And so C.S. Lewis defines prudence this way. He says prudence means practical common sense, or making the effort to think about what you are doing and what is likely to come from it. To think about what you are doing and what is likely to come from it. And so there's two kinds of prudence. There's kind of that when we think about it, what the first thing that we can think about is kind of being wise as a serpent sort of thing. That we could, we think about the Machiavellian planning schemerson sort of way. How can I be slick? How can I be sly? How can I get one over on somebody? And that's which is really this worldly prudence, which is this idea of that appears, it appears uncaring. It appears to be that when we become the source of our own wisdom in our own way, and that we become we become the center of shrewdness. And this is what we're seeing when Jesus says, if you don't let go of if one does not hate father, mother, wife, children, brothers, if we don't reject the worldly way in which we can execute our prudence, if we just stay with our schemerson self, if we do what's good for me and mine, if we do what's always good for me and mine, and forget about everybody else, if we just get our own wants and needs met and we forget about the entire world, that's a form of prudence. But at the end of the day, it does not equate to us carrying the load, carrying the cross that Jesus calls us to carry, to be a learner in the way of Christ. And this is what being a disciple means. That word gets dressed up a little bit. All it means is to be a learner in the way. To be a disciple of Jesus is to learn in the way that Jesus learned. To become in the way that Jesus to become. To put your feet in the places that Jesus put his feet as he walked through the earth. That to be a disciple is to move in the same way that he moved. The other is divine prudence, which is really what Jesus is calling us to. That God is the source of our wisdom. God sees that and it's ours to simply see and receive what is, and that not to put our own needs and our own wants at the centrality of that, but to be receivers and recognizers of what is good and true and beautiful. The more and more the scientists study consciousness, what more and more of them are coming to is this reality, and which is really what the Christian reality says, the way in which we are. but that the human brain is not this image making machine. We think about the famous quote that the of Calvin's, the heart of man is an idol factory, that we just keep putting wants in front of us that we're going to work, that it just keeps putting wants in front of us that we are going to worship, which in part is true, but what we're starting to understand about the brain is that the brain isn't as much in the business of originating things as we've come to think. And it's what I've come to believe, and what I think Christianity teaches us, and what I think is part of the Christian walk, is that our minds, our brains, are really receptor organs. They are receiving things. They are receiving God's grace. They are also receiving whispers from that which is not godly, and that old kind of image of a devil on one shoulder, an angel on another, actually has a whole lot more credence than maybe we moderns would necessarily give it. That we have as a part of our lives, and that the exercise of prudence is the exercise of standing in that place where we recognize that is the reality, and that we practically move and make an effort into doing what the outcome of our action is. How often are we moving through the world where everything we do has an outcome? If we sit down and eat the tray of brownies, it has an outcome. If we are mean or short with one another, it has an outcome. If we are mean or cruel to ourselves, it has an outcome. That in fact you have enough negative self-talk, it will in fact manifest in your body. Ask any honest physician, any honest healer will tell you this will happen. That so much of that comes from, our tribe. And so that we have to be in a place where we can let go of some of that, and from the messages we got when we were young, from what a teacher told us, from what a parent told us, from what somebody told us that we are, versus what God tells us we are, which is this beautiful child of God made in the image of God. And it's from that place, from that identity, not from our tribe, not from our as my dad once said about Stinsons, we come from a long line of bad drinkers. Well, that's an inheritance. You can, you can take that up or you can not, and all the things that deals with. But this notion that we have a responsibility that God places upon us. We have a cross that's ours to bear. We have a difficulty, a suffering that we carry in this world, and that we carry it best, and we carry it most fully, and that we allow all the other good things in our life to come back when we just have some common sense. Now, Mark Twain was right. Common sense ain't so common, and that prudence, I think, is actually one of the virtues that is in many ways least exercised in these days. That we're constantly in the sense of, let's not do what is practical. Let's not do let's not look at the outcome that we're going to get if we do this thing. But what's going to be the outcome? But rather, let's just do the thing because it feels good, because it makes us feel good about what we're doing, about that. I talked yesterday about the meal we were going to serve today. We served the meal today, and I bore witness to the beauty of prudence in action. That it was well planned, well executed. Everybody had their roles and everything. It went well, but it was also this sense where there was a cost counted. There was enough for everybody. There were some lovely things that happened along the way. There was some engagement with students. There was genuine thanksgiving from people that were there. But that started with an end in mind. Stephen Covey in his rules for 7 rules for living, which are kind of mirrored on it's an old book now, but it still holds up in terms of the great wisdom that's within it. Covey, one of Covey's rules, one of his central rules, is to begin with the end in mind. And I think if we're going to think about prudence, that's and that's a great way. That's a great way to understand it. And I just want you to, as we go into the weekend, as we prepare to worship on Sunday, as we set down our 11:11 for a few days, and we get ready to pick it up, I want, and we come to worship on Sunday. I just want to encourage you to think about this. What if everything we did? What if everything we did? Every breath we took, every time we exercised or didn't exercise, every time we went for a ride, every ice cream we ate, every engagement we had with a person that we loved or don't love, that we began with the end in mind, that we saw it through the lens of prudence, that by through to go back to Lewis's sense, this mother of all virtues, that prudence means the practical common sense making the effort to think about what you're doing and what is likely to come from it. Now, none of us live our lives this way, and it's not possible to live our lives that way. We are emotional creatures. We get all fired up about all kinds of stuff. None of that, and this isn't a judgment call to say, don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying, sit here and get your hair, shirt, and flail out for the weekend so you can feel bad about yourself. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying, just as a thought exercise, just as a marvelous thing, of what would it be to invite prudence into your life? What would it be to put on the old Beatles song and say, "Dear Prudence, won't you come out to play?" What would it be in your life to think to just a little bit more as we move through our days, have these opportunities to put forward to begin with the end in mind, to say a word to someone we love with the end being of what we'll get in the end, of what we'll generate when we do it, of what the world will be offered in our doing and our thinking of things. That prudence as the master of and as the mother of all virtues, and is one of the grandest things to pursue. Because here's the thing. The ancients always depicted in form the virtues as generally as beautiful women. Now, the reason they did that is not because they were a bunch of sexist pigs, but because in the cosmic movement of things, that generally men pursue beautiful women. I don't know if you've heard this, but it's a thing that happens. But that relationship, it was to describe the relationship that we are to have to the virtues. We're not to seize them and possess them. We are not to deify them and put them on a pedestal. We are not to reject, but we're to pursue them, not with the idea of having them, but with simply that idea of the way a man pursues a woman. Is this image, and this isn't about sex. This is about the idea of what it means to pursue and something that we find attractive and beautiful, and that we would desire to be closer to. And this is how all of the virtues were depicted, but particularly prudence, that we might pursue the grand idea of just common sense, that ain't so common, that we might begin every phrase, every action, every moment with the end in mind. What do we want to get out of this? That we would examine what we have and what we can do versus what we want to do, and versus and put before ourselves this notion of building up the things that really need building, and putting our efforts into the things that we can really affect and that we can really make images. How many things are in our lives that we are concerned about, but we can't actually have any purchase on? that we don't actually have any ability to affect. But to be able to place our efforts, just as we did this morning by going over and having breakfast with RPA, the ability, we can make a difference there, and we did. That in the things that we need to let go of, in the dead limbs of our life that need pruning, in the things that we know need to go to war against and resist, or we need to just make peace with, depending on where they are, but that we need to stop pouring our efforts into, that those things can be as they are, and we can let them go. But in all of it, we can understand ourselves not as a Stinson from Maine, or as whatever tribe we come from, but we can understand ourselves as a child of God, born in the image of God, receiving God's love and God's grace in every moment, and beginning every thought, action, word, and deed from that place. Not that we're going to do it, not that we're going to be able to pull that off, but that we are going to be able to pursue that as one of the most beautiful things ever for us to encounter. And that, friends, is what I hope for you this weekend. As we get ready to step off into worship, as we'll raise a child up in baptism this Sunday. So fun! And we will pick it up next week with another 11:11.